Hello, and welcome to Calm and Cozy Stories, a place where everyone can find calm and enchantment beneath the soft glow of the moon, right before drifting off to sleep. Tonight, we invite you on another journey through a captivating story, one that helps cultivate a sense of peace and relaxation. Before we begin, let's take a moment to gently prepare our bodies and minds for a soothing, restorative rest. Make yourself comfortable, and with each slow inhale and long exhale, allow the cares of the day to gradually slip away. It's not always simple to detach from the day's busyness, especially when bedtime approaches. But keep in mind, the less we worry about falling asleep, the easier it is for the mind to release tension. Let the steady rhythm of your breathing carry off any remaining worries, and let the story you're about to hear guide you into deep relaxation. Now, settle in and allow the moonlit atmosphere to softly embrace you. Enjoy this story, and may you drift into peaceful, restful slumber here on Calm and Cozy Stories. Wood smoke, a phantom thread in the frigid air, wove itself through the richer scents of chocolate and coffee, conjuring the perfect enchantment against the silent snowfall outside. Ilara cradled the ceramic warmth of her hot chocolate, letting the heat seep through her palms, a welcome tide flowing inward. She lifted the mug, inhaling deeply. Sweetness kissed with a whisper of mint filled her senses. She sat nestled within a cozy kota, in the heart of Sapmi, Finland's northernmost realm, a land cloaked in snow for more than half the year, residing serenely above the Arctic Circle. These protracted winters sculpt a unique existence, life and culture intrinsically bound to the long, embracing nights and the omnipresent snow. The coffee house, fashioned like a traditional Sami hut, eschewed the familiar log cabin form for a more pronounced triangular silhouette, its heart a substantial stone fire pit radiating welcome heat. Polished picnic-style tables, hewn from wood, were scattered across the floor. The ambient warmth was sufficient for her turtleneck jumper. Her heavy winter coat rested on a wooden rack across the room. From behind the counter came the gentle percussion of mugs, meeting water, as a woman attended to her duties. A quiet symphony of languages, English, Finnish, Russian, Spanish, murmured around Ilara, voices of locals and fellow travelers drawn to this wondrous Finnish expanse. Dim yellow lamps, suspended from metal fixtures dispersed throughout the space, cast a moody, rustic luminescence. Outside, twilight already deepened the sky. Daylight hours were fleeting here, yet vestiges of color lingered as she gazed upon the wintry tableau. Fresh snowflakes descended with an almost deliberate grace, adding to the thick, pristine blanket already muffling the world. In the distance, the lights of other village shops and homes glimmered softly, including the faint outline of the cabin awaiting her return. Each building emanated the same soft, yellow-tinted glow, a beautiful counterpoint to the deepening blues and whites of the snowscape. Snow-laden trees stood like silent sentinels scattered through the village. The scene possessed a magic that demanded preservation. Unzipping her backpack, Ilara rummaged past thick gloves, a leather-bound journal, And, nestled securely at the bottom, a pair of ice skates. Her fingers brushed a lace, a flicker of anticipation for the hours ahead, igniting within her. Finally, her hand closed around her phone. It felt startlingly cold. Opening the camera application, she shifted towards the window pane. She raised the phone, tapping the screen to sharpen the focus on the ethereal scene beyond the glass. A few clicks captured the moment before she lowered the device, admiring the final photograph until the screen surrendered to darkness. With a decisive click, the phone was powered down and returned to the depths of her backpack. The zipper's rasp momentarily harmonizing with the fire's contented crackle nearby. Her attention returned to the table, to the ceramic mug. Lifting it once more, she inhaled the lingering aroma before taking a slow, deliberate sip. She held the comforting warmth for a while longer, sipping intermittently, her gaze drifting between the cozy interior and the hushed, snow-draped world outside. Eventually, the mug stood empty. Placing it gently on the wooden surface, Ilara gathered her backpack and slid off the bench. A smile and a wave acknowledged the server as she retrieved her coat from the rack. She approached the curved wooden door, leading to a small, sheltered patio. Grasping the handle, the profound chill of the Arctic winter reached for her, a fleeting embrace as she opened the door. The cold air washed over her momentarily, but her layers, her formidable coat, were allies against even the deepest frost. Before venturing further, she paused, taking a seat on a bench tucked beneath the eaves, shielded from the falling snow. Unzipping her pack again, she retrieved a pair of thick, woolen gloves. Methodically, she drew them on, first one hand, then the other, adjusting each finger until the fit was perfectly snug. Now, I am ready, she thought, rising to her feet. A deep exhalation plumed before her, a visible warmth lingering for a heartbeat before dissolving into the crystalline air. Her rented kick sled awaited, the preferred mode of transport on these snow-packed, unsalted lanes. Fashioned primarily from wood, it featured a small chair mounted above twin metal runners, akin to elongated skis, crowned with sturdy handlebars. She'd left it propped just to the right of the kota before entering. The snow crunched softly, a delicate shattering sound beneath her boots with every step. The sled was as she had left it, albeit now lightly dusted with fresh snow upon its seat and handlebars. Just then, a local man ambled past. In accented English, he gestured towards a nearby shed, mentioning a snow scraper kept inside. Ilara glanced over, noticing the small outbuilding, its steep triangular roof echoing the cafe's design. A smile touched her lips as she offered her thanks for his unsolicited kindness. A firm tug was required to wrench the old shed door open. Ice had formed intricate lattices in the gaps, sealing it shut. Inside, amongst shadowed tools, she located the snow scraper behind a large rake. With brisk strokes, she cleared the accumulated snow from the sled's chair and handlebars, then returned the scraper to its place, pushing the shed door firmly closed until it latched. Almost ready now, for the ride towards the forest, she mused. Carefully, She secured her backpack onto the sled's chair, ensuring its stability. Then, planting one foot, then the other, onto the runners, she gave a tentative push, first with her right foot, then the left. Finding her balance, her gloved hands settled onto the cold metal of the handlebars. She briefly imagined the biting chill had her fingers been bare. Drawing her dominant foot back, she launched herself forward with a strong push into the snowy blanket. Crystalline flakes sprayed upwards like miniature fireworks. In moments, she was gliding, navigating the straight, snow-covered avenue of the Arctic village. She established a rhythm, gliding smoothly, then kicking against the packed snow to regain momentum. Cabins drifted past. Fellow pedestrians offered brief nods. Far ahead, the sunset painted the horizon in soft, ethereal hues, pale pinks, bleeding into the delicate blue of the encroaching night. The colors deepened with each passing moment. The sun dipped low quickly here, above the Arctic Circle. The inhabitants were accustomed to the abbreviated days, the scarce sunlight, having learned to embrace the darkness, fostering the cozy sanctuaries of candlelit interiors and fire-warmed cafes. Soon, she passed the man from the shed. He likely heard the rhythmic shush of her sled runners approaching. They exchanged waves and brief greetings without her breaking stride. Minute snowflakes tapped against her nose and cheeks as she navigated the road. A profound sense of contentment settled over her, a feeling of belonging. "There is nowhere else I would rather be right now," she affirmed inwardly, kicking out once more. A flurry of motion zipped past, children on their own kicksleds. A gust of cold air swirled in their wake. She watched them. 2 young boys standing upright on the runners, bundled in warm winter gear, woolen scarves trailing. Another child, a girl in a white knitted beanie, sat nestled in one of the chairs, mitten-clad hands resting calmly in her lap, strands of hair escaping to dance in the wind. The small convoy ventured further down the street, their laughter echoing faintly. After several more minutes of rhythmic gliding, Ilara executed a leisurely right turn. As she rounded the corner, a vista of pure winter enchantment unfolded. Before her lay the lake, a vast expanse locked beneath thick, solid ice. Encircling much of its perimeter stood pine trees, their boughs magically frosted with snow. The crisp, clean scent of pine drifted on the air, an aroma that instantly captivated her senses, one of her most cherished winter fragrances. Peppermint, pine, warm spices. These, to her, embodied the season's soul. The sun had almost entirely vanished now, and stars began to prick the darkening canvas of the sky. A few scattered lampposts flickered to life, their faint clicking audible in the stillness, casting pools of light upon the snow. It was an idyllic setting for ice skating. Drawing closer, she brought the sled to a gentle halt near the lake's edge, letting out a soft sigh after the pleasant exertion of the ride. She paused, absorbing the serene beauty of the snow-dusted pines, meeting the frozen water under the vast, darkening sky. A sturdy-looking log, half buried in the snow, caught her eye. its dark wood a striking contrast against the white expanse. She maneuvered her sled alongside it, pressing the runners firmly into the snowdrift to anchor it. Glancing down at her hands, she used her left to gently pull at the fingertips of her right glove, sliding it off and tucking it into her coat pocket. Repeating the motion with the left glove, she felt the soft wool yield before stowing it away. Bending forward, she unzipped her backpack, pushing aside other items until her fingers closed around the ice skates. They clinked and bumped together as she drew them out. Protective covers shielded the blades. She carefully pulled these off each skate, the chill of the metal sharp against her bare hands. The covers dropped into her open bag. Her current footwear, snug snow boots, had kept her feet blissfully warm throughout her journey. A slight hesitation arose at the thought of removing them in the frigid air. Nevertheless, she shifted her backpack aside and settled onto the kick-sled's chair. Propping her right foot on the log for easier access, she unlaced the boot and slid her foot out, momentarily feeling the thick fleece lining. The boot dropped softly onto the snow. She guided her foot into the ice skate, wrapped the laces firmly around her hands, and pulled taut, securing the skate snugly. A sturdy double knot completed the task. Wiggling her foot confirmed the perfect fit. Lowering her right foot, she swiftly repeated the entire process with her left. With both skates securely fastened, a familiar, fluttering sensation stirred in her stomach. Anticipation. It was time. Before rising, she retrieved her gloves from her pockets and pulled them back onto her hands. Instantly, her skin began to warm, returning to a comfortable coziness. Now I am truly ready, she decided. Standing up, she took a few cautious steps towards the frozen lake, the snow crunching beneath the skate blades. Then, she was on the ice. Her body moved with an almost instinctive grace. It had been some time since she'd last skated, but muscle memory asserted itself. Soon, she felt as though she were performing a silent dance, gliding effortlessly across the vast, frozen stage. The blades hissed and scraped against the ice, a crisp, beautiful sound accompanying her swirls and turns on the thick, frozen surface. Pure, unadulterated joy surged through her. It was just Ilera, the ice, and the immense natural beauty of Arctic Finland embracing her. She found herself spinning in joyous circles, a wide smile gracing her lips, laughter bubbling up as she looked towards the star-strewn sky, overwhelmed with gratitude for this extraordinary moment. As she tilted her head back, a large, perfect snowflake landed softly on the tip of her nose, eliciting another giggle. The day felt utterly perfect, incapable of improvement. She continued to skate, surrendering to the exhilarating sensation of freedom. Playfully, she experimented with simple maneuvers, turning, skating backward. It took a moment to find the rhythm, but soon it felt entirely natural, swaying her hips gently, zigzagging across the lake in reverse. After a few minutes, she turned forward again, the crisp air rushing past her, a tangible presence. The temperature had noticeably dropped since sunset. It made her think of the moon. Slowing her glide, She scanned the heavens again. "There it is," she whispered, spotting a slender crescent, yet luminous against the deepening indigo. Nearby, a steady, bright point of light held her gaze. Venus, she recalled, distinguishable from the stars by its unwavering glow. As her eyes traced the faint outlines of constellations, something unusual began to unfold. A subtle mistiness seemed to coalesce in the sky. She squinted, focusing intently. Then, a soft, astonished gasp escaped her lips as the phenomenon intensified, deepening into a mesmerizing, vibrant green. She was witnessing the aurora borealis, the northern lights. Ribbons of emerald light swayed and pulsed across the star-dusted expanse, their ethereal movements seeming to echo her own skating patterns. The lights shimmered, one section flaring with an almost neon intensity, then extending outwards, softening as they danced and undulated. Yet, despite the celestial motion overhead, time itself felt suspended. She couldn't recall if she was still moving on the ice or standing perfectly still, utterly transfixed. It felt as though she had momentarily stepped outside of ordinary space and time, gazing up at this breathtaking spectacle. The otherworldly colors, the silent, luminous performance. It felt impossibly close. Instinctively, she reached out a hand, as if to touch the flowing light. And then, in a fleeting, graceful finale, the lights pulsed once more and faded, like velvet curtains drawing closed at a performance's end. A tingling sensation suffused her entire body as she stood motionless in the middle of the frozen lake. She felt intensely alive, yet simultaneously calm and serene, profoundly moved by the spectacle she had just witnessed. Nothing like it, she thought. I have never seen anything like it. So grateful, so incredibly glad to be here on this perfect day. Slowly, almost reverently, she glided around the lake one last time, her mind replaying the natural marvel. Then, she steered towards the edge, back towards her belongings, stepping carefully off the ice onto the snowy bank, tiny shards of ice skittering from beneath her blades. Back in the snow, she sat down on the kick-sled's chair. Her fuzzy boots waited patiently. Bending down, she untied each skate, pulling them off one by one and setting them aside. Slipping her feet back into the welcome warmth of her boots, she laced them comfortably. Standing, she turned and brushed off stray snowflakes that had settled on her shoulders while she skated. Picking up the skates, she felt their surprising weight in one hand, while retrieving the blade covers from her bag with the other. Gently, she pushed the covers onto each blade, then placed the skates back into her pack, letting out a sigh of deep contentment. She zipped the backpack securely shut one final time. Now, she pulled the kick sled back onto the main path, ready for the short return journey to the village center. Propelled by rhythmic kicks, she sped along the snow-covered track. Other locals and visitors were still out, enjoying the crisp evening air. She noticed they all seemed to possess a similar, quiet radiance about them. She imagined her own face held the same glow. As she sledded past a small group, she overheard snippets of conversation about the northern lights. A private smile touched her lips, thinking of the exceptionally clear, intimate view she had experienced from the secluded lake. Soon, she arrived back at her cabin, parking her sled alongside several others near the entrance. There was no need for locks or chains. Trust and safety were palpable in this place. A couple of steps led up to the cabin door. She gently kicked the toes of her boots against the risers, dislodging clumps of snow. At the threshold, she scraped her feet thoroughly on the snowflake-patterned doormat before turning the knob and stepping inside. The small cabin featured a main common area where a few guests could gather around a crackling fireplace. Her gaze fell upon the hearth, where a couple sat close together, holding steaming mugs. Vapor curled upwards as the woman took a sip. As the door clicked shut behind Dilara, the woman glanced her way, offering a warm smile, before turning back to the mesmerizing flames. Heading down the short hallway, the wooden floorboards creaked softly beneath her weight. Soon, she reached her room. It was a cozy haven, dominated by a large bed adorned with rustic textiles. A small, potted pine tree stood in the corner, suffusing the air with its fresh forest scent. Slipping off her boots, she flicked on a string of delicate fairy lights affixed to the wall beside her bed, instantly creating a welcoming ambiance. Across from the bed, a window looked out onto the night. She walked over and drew back the curtains. Closing her eyes for a hopeful moment, she then looked out at the silent, snow-laden landscape and up towards the clear, star-saturated sky. With a soft yawn, she began her preparations for sleep. Soon she was pulling back the luxuriously soft blankets, slipping between the cool sheets, one leg at a time. She fluffed her pillows, then leaned across to the bedside table to switch off the fairy lights. And then, as if summoned by the darkness, the northern lights reappeared through her window. Glowing greens swirled with soft whites against the celestial backdrop. The lights moved with a slow, languid grace, a silent, luminous dance, like illustrations accompanying a whispered bedtime story. Time drifted. The lights shimmered high above. Before she fully registered it, her eyelids grew heavy, struggling to remain open. She blinked slowly, softly, drifting into a deep, restful slumber. Her dreams already weaving themselves from the magic of Arctic Finland and the dazzling, unforgettable aurora borealis. Dusk settled like warm honey over the lanes of the southern town, a languid peace breathing through the sun-baked streets. Here, in this haven cradled by Provence, life unspooled at a gentler cadence. Blossoms erupted in a riot of color from window boxes and tangled gardens. The houses themselves, washed in ochre, rose, and sky blue, seemed to vie with nature's exuberance. Each facade a cheerful declaration against the fading light. One such dwelling commanded the center of a square, nestled deep within the town's embrace. This evening, the declining sun lavished its gold upon the structure. Its walls shone butter bright, the shutters a counterpoint of vivid green. Blooming oleanders and acacias veiled portions of the facade, their pinks, whites, and delicate yellows offering perfect accents to this inviting sanctuary. The oleander branches dripped with blossoms, while the acacias displayed their oval leaves and fragile blooms like intricate lacework. A scattering of figures ambled along the street, their errands pursued with an unhurried grace. Time stretched differently here, elastic and generous. Contentment seemed etched onto faces. Patience was not a virtue, but a way of being, the art of quietude mastered and enjoyed. On the first floor of the yellow house, behind the open green shutters of a window, a lanky figure stood sentinel. Elias, flame-haired, bearded and fierce ginger, possessed eyes the color of sea glass that drank in the square's quiet theater with profound contentment. An émigré from the grayer climes of the north, first Holland, then Paris, he'd found sanctuary here. This town had claimed his heart upon arrival, its allure deepening with every passing day. He'd confessed as much to his sister. The South was thawing something within him, the warmth and brilliance clarifying his thoughts, igniting inspiration at every turn. Elias was a painter, though recognition still eluded him. His devotion to art was absolute, the defining current of his existence. Painting consumed his thoughts. A unique fulfillment bloomed when he stood before his easel, hands stained with charcoal and pigment, wrestling the world's beauty onto canvas. He could conjure life from anything. The Spartan geometry of his bedroom, the beloved orchards bursting into flower. Recent months had been a period of intense creation. The orchards surrounding the town, now at their zenith, offered endless subjects. He painted with fervent, unbridled joy. Tonight, however, Elias craved repose. Having just wrestled the essence of peach trees onto canvas, he yearned for mental space, a quiet interlude. He'd been captivated lately by those very trees, their delicate pink-white petals possessing an exotic fragility, brightening the landscape like scattered jewels. Elias reveled in the vibrant pigments that allowed him to translate southern France, the blushing pinks of peach blossoms, the woody browns and verdant greens of branch and leaf. Then came the golds and coppers for the wheat fields, mixed with reds and yellows, touched with bronze, creating scenes that vibrated with texture and depth, threatening to leap from the canvas. Mulling over the town's inherent beauty, Elias turned from the window, preparing to venture out. A walk beckoned, first to his cherished spot by the river, then perhaps towards the wheat fields, to wander beneath the nascent stars. This was his truest form of relaxation, exploring this enchanting place, allowing its sights and sounds to replenish his creative wellspring. Elias moved through the compact room, gathering necessities, a handkerchief, coins, his blue coat. His bedroom was elemental, a bed framed in turmeric yellow, 2 simple chairs, a small table. Whitewashed walls met red-tiled floors. He desired simplicity in furnishings, letting art provide the richness. His own canvases crowded the walls, landscapes blazing with color, transforming the small, cozy space into a vibrant gallery. He lifted his yellow straw hat from its peg, the stark yellow a bold contrast against his fiery hair and beard, the very image of impassioned artistry. Lacing his most comfortable brown shoes, Elias exited the room, closing the door softly. He passed the guest bedroom, envisioning it adorned soon with more of his work, and descended the stairs. Opening the front door, he stepped onto the gray cobblestones, noticing blades of soft grass pushing up between them. Elias began his meandering journey towards the Rhône, the river that coiled through the town. He loved the water's edge. By day, he'd scrutinize the riverbank flora, mentally dissecting their forms, pondering how light sculpted their greens. By night, the sky held his gaze. He'd watch the stars mirrored in the current, mesmerized by the rippling pale yellow curves they traced upon the dark surface. Elias strolled without haste, more absorbed in observation than arrival. He walked thoughtfully, sifting through nascent ideas for future canvases. A current of creative energy surged as he noted the minutiae of his surroundings. Everything held potential, viewed with hope and painterly interest. To Elias, the entire world belonged on canvas. Every detail possessed beauty worthy of immortalization. People passed him, heading home or towards the very cafe he often frequented. Raised in a similar countryside setting, he felt an affinity for the farmers he encountered here, their sun-weathered faces, expressive narratives he longed to capture. It deepened his connection to shared humanity. Before embracing this life, he'd often yearned for the simplicity absent in Paris, the metropolis, though an artist's paradise, hadn't quite suited his temperament. He needed quietude, nature's embrace, space to think. As these thoughts drifted, a group of locals ambled by. Women in voluminous cotton skirts of myriad colors, white blouses and neck scarves. Men in equally colorful attire. Their faces, bronzed by fieldwork, were tired yet cheerful, lit by the shared humor of a story being told. Elias smiled inwardly. Already, he was painting them in his mind. Bold strokes of ultramarine, deep ruby, emerald green for their clothes, brilliant yellow for the sun, oranges and reds defining the fields. People possessed an ineffable quality, he mused, a vitality demanding translation into paint. Their movements, their voices, it all felt like a wondrous, unending melody he felt compelled to transcribe. The murmur of the river drew him from his reverie. He had arrived at his favored spot. The clear blue water shimmered, illuminated by the orange-gold light of the setting sun. He sighed. A perfect moment to be here. He walked a little further to his usual place by the Rhône, near the vol.28 drawbridge. He preferred sitting on the grass facing the structure, Sometimes he'd make preliminary sketches, studies to grasp the composition before committing to paint, though he favored working directly from the scene. Tonight, however, was for rest. No sketching, no painting for these few hours. He found his spot on the cushiony grass and sat, placing his straw hat beside him. He drew his knees up, wrapping his arms around them. A faint smile traced his lips. Peace settled upon him here by the Rhone. The river's gentle cadence relaxed his shoulders, sluicing away lingering thoughts. For a time, his mind was blessedly blank. He simply gazed, absorbing the landscape, the thick bushes seeming to lean in, thirsting for the cool water, the sporadic chirping of birds calling mates home, the river itself, painted orange by the sun's descent. On opposing banks, red brick retaining walls, dashed with white, supported the dark brown drawbridge, its lowering chains a shade of rusty maroon. Elias admired the bridge. So simple, he thought, yet in perfect concord with its environment, standing sentinel above the sun-dappled water. The colors resonated, each complementing the others. The river had flowed thus long before his arrival, and would continue long after he departed. Its eternal movement captivated him, mirroring the permanence he sought for his art. He imagined someone, someday, viewing his painting of this scene, the very river he now watched still flowing, unchanged. He sat, contemplating this continuity. The Rhone held him utterly enchanted. His breathing seemed to sync with the river's flow, his chest rising and falling rhythmically, like the water eddying over submerged stones. The grass was soft beneath him. A light breeze stirred his red hair. Closing his eyes momentarily, he savored the coolness on his eyelids, his forehead. He began to reconstruct the scene internally, but through his own artistic lens. He pictured his brush, its handle polychromed from years of use, poised above a blank canvas. The bridge first. Careful, precise lines defining its structure. Nut-brown columns materialized in his mind, followed by burnt sienna strokes forming the thin chain links. Brick by brick, red and white, the walls took shape, his imagined strokes becoming looser, freer. He favored a bold style, thin strokes laid close, creating an image that almost vibrated with movement. Next, the river. It flowed onto his mental canvas. Strokes of cobalt blue laced with white, layered one upon another. The imagined paint moved as the water did, gliding, swirling over unseen rocks. Then, the vegetation, jade, emerald, moss green, applied with circular motions here, rapid, straight dashes there. He'd mix brown into the green, add a cluster of tall ochre reeds. Elias smiled. The mere act of painting in his mind brought profound joy. After several more moments, he opened his eyes. Darkness had deepened. The sun had dipped below the horizon. He could linger, watch evening bleed fully into night, but the thought of a warm drink, perhaps something to eat, surfaced. He decided on his favorite cafe. He appreciated their coffee, and its location on the street allowed him either to engage with passers-by or remain comfortably solitary. Taking a final look around, Elias stood, donned his hat, and turned back towards the town, mentally promising the river spot a swift return. The cafe occupied a narrow lane. Patrons had choices. the bustling room housing the billiard table, alive with the clatter of balls and convivial shouts. The terrace, ideal for nocturnal stargazing. Or, Elias's frequent preference, the small tables and chairs set just outside, edging into the lane, perfect for observing the street's gentle flow of life. Tonight, Elias selected one of these outdoor tables and ordered coffee. While waiting, his gaze traced the familiar geometry of the paving stones. Similar to those near his house, he noted. The cafe itself pulsed yellow. In the glow of the gas lamps, it seemed almost animate, imbued with movement and depth. That same light spilled onto the cobblestones, transforming their dove-gray surfaces into shades of rich violet and deep blue. Houses lined the lane, most fronted by rows of trees. From his vantage point, Elias had an unobstructed view of both the terrestrial scene and the celestial one unfolding above. The stars were emerging now, pricking the darkening fabric of the sky one by one. Sipping his warm coffee, he contemplated how different this scene would be on canvas compared to the river vista. This was quotidian life. Just a cafe. A street, houses. Yet, in Elias's thoughts, the yellows, purples, grays, browns, and blues were already swirling, coalescing, fixing this moment in imagined pigment. His sea-glass eyes reflected the lamp's yellow glare. To an observer, he might have seemed entranced, lost. But within Elias's mind, a blank canvas was undergoing a wondrous transformation. The stars overhead shimmered with lemony light. He perceived it as nothing short of magical. Elias finished his coffee, left the cafe, and headed towards the wheat fields bordering the town. An old, beloved mill stood just beyond them. He favored visiting the fields at night. The view of the heavens there was unobstructed, vast, unlike beneath the town's taller trees. It offered space to lie back in the grass and commune with the stars for as long as he wished. He loved the chromatic tension between field and sky. One warm, golden, delicate, composed of yellows and browns. The other dark, mysterious, cloaked in cool blues and blacks. En route, he passed a field of irises, row upon row of lovely blue blooms punctuating the landscape. He'd painted them recently, pleased with the captured sense of movement mirroring their sway in the evening breeze. He found them charmingly wild, rendering them with broad, confident strokes. Further on stood a cluster of almond trees, another recent subject, now in full blossom. Their thick, charcoal-dark bark, strong and rough, provided a stunning contrast to the delicate pink and white flowers crowning their branches. They reminded him of cherry blossoms, sparking a fleeting wish to be in Japan, studying sakura. For those paintings, he'd exercised unusual care with each petal, respecting the tree's exquisite individuality, proud that this reverence showed in the final work. Shortly past the almond grove, he reached the wheat field. He paused, watching the airy stalks sway, so fine they barely caught the moonlight, lending them an ethereal luminescence. The grassy verge looked inviting. Selecting a spot, He lay down in the cool grass, removing his hat and placing it on his chest. In the distance, the mill groaned softly in the breeze. Nearby, crickets chirped their nightly chorus. These were the sights and sounds he had abandoned Paris to find, and on nights like this, gratitude washed over him. Elias closed his eyes, letting the sounds saturate his senses. The rustling wheat mimicked the distant rush of a river. He loved painting what he saw, but in moments like these, he yearned to capture the entire experience. Sounds, sensations, atmosphere, precisely as lived. He opened his eyes again, gazing upward. A crescent moon hung beside countless glittering stars. The unimpeded view was why he came here. Just him, the field, the mill, and the immense nocturnal expanse. Elias often puzzled over the common notion that painting starry skies was merely dotting white on black. Even now, looking up, he perceived magnificent color everywhere. To his eyes, the sky wasn't black, but a profound, deep blue, darker than his ultramarine pigment, yet radiant like the lapis lazuli stone it derived from. Occasional clouds drifted past, animating the darkness, creating waves of white and gray against the deeper background, as if a cosmic hand wielded a broad brush, much like his own. And the stars hypnotized him. Not white, as often depicted, but golden, pink, emerald, scarlet, gemstones scattered across dark blue velvet. While the stars felt magical, mysterious, the moon offered familiar comfort, glowing a warm, pale yellow, like an old friend. The desire to paint the night sky, with all the emotions it evoked, visited him often, yet he always found himself lost in the contemplation, deferring the act. One day, he promised himself, he would paint it, perhaps with cypress trees looming dark against the Rhone, or maybe just as it was now, above these very wheat fields. Lying in bed at night, he often rehearsed it mentally, envisioning the colors, the strokes needed to replicate its otherworldly presence as his eyes perceived it. Elias blinked, his mind adrift. His eyes mirrored the starlit heavens, just as earlier they had reflected the sunset on the river, with images of swirling blue clouds and the breeze propelling them across the vast canvas above. He felt drowsiness claim him. He dreamed of immense, radiant yellow stars, the eternal, unchanging river, and delicate pink blossoms fluttering on the wind. He dreamed in swirling bands of cobalt and ultramarine, mixed with white and orange, punctuated by long, dark green shapes. In his slumber, Elias began to create the painting of the wild, starry night that watched over him.